In 1347, something arrived in Europe. It came on ships from the Black Sea. Sailors were found dead at their oars. Those still alive were covered in black swellings, oozing blood and pus. Port authorities in Sicily ordered the ships out of the harbor immediately. It was already too late. Within 4 years, 50 million people were dead. 1/3 of the entire population of Europe gone. In some regions, the death toll reached 80%. Entire villages wiped out completely. Bodies piling faster than the living could bury them. It was the deadliest pandemic in human history. And for 7 centuries, we have called it the Black Death, caused by a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, spread by fleas on rats. Case closed. Except modern scientists are no longer so sure. Because when you look closely at what actually happened in the 14th century, the bubonic plague explanation has some serious problems. And the real answer may be far more disturbing. Welcome back to Mysterious History, the channel where the official story is never the whole story. Today, we are tackling one of the darkest chapters in human history. An event so catastrophic, it reshaped European civilization, altered its language, art, religion, and social structure permanently. The Black Death killed between 75 and 200 million people between 1347 and 1351. The numbers are almost impossible to comprehend. And for generations, we thought we understood exactly what caused it. But a growing body of scientific evidence is challenging that assumption. What really killed medieval Europe? Let us look at what the evidence actually says. The accepted explanation for the Black Death is bubonic plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. The standard account goes like this. The bacterium lives in rodent populations, particularly rats. Fleas feed on infected rats and pick up the bacterium. When the rats die, the fleas look for new hosts. They jump to humans. They bite. They transmit the infection. The infected person develops the characteristic buboes, swollen lymph nodes in the groin, armpit, or neck, black and agonizing. Without treatment, bubonic plague kills roughly 30 to 60% of those infected. The disease also has 2 more deadly forms: septicemic plague, which infects the bloodstream directly, and pneumonic plague, which infects the lungs and can spread through the air from person to person. This is the story told in history books for generations. And it is not wrong exactly. DNA evidence recovered from 14th century burial sites has confirmed the presence of Yersinia pestis in Black Death victims. The bacterium was definitely there. But here is where the questions begin. If the Black Death was primarily spread by rat fleas, there are several things we would expect to see. Things that the historical record does not show. Problem 1. The speed of spread. Bubonic plague spread by rat fleas moves at a predictable rate. Modern outbreaks of bubonic plague in the 20th century in India and elsewhere spread at roughly 8 to 12 miles per year through flea transmission. The Black Death spread across Europe at an average rate of 1 to 6 miles per day, many times faster than rat flea transmission can account for. Something was spreading the Black Death far more efficiently than rats and fleas. Problem 2. The seasonality is wrong. Fleas are cold-blooded creatures. They thrive in warm, humid conditions and become largely inactive in cold weather. Bubonic plague outbreaks historically slow dramatically or stop entirely in winter. The Black Death did not slow in winter. It kept killing through the coldest months with barely any seasonal variation. In Scandinavia, where winters are brutally cold, the death toll was just as catastrophic as in the warmer Mediterranean. Fleas cannot explain this. Problem 3. The rat die-off. When bubonic plague strikes a population, it first devastates the rat population. Mass rat deaths are a reliable early warning sign of bubonic plague outbreaks. Medieval chroniclers documented the Black Death in extraordinary detail. They wrote about the symptoms, the speed of death, the social collapse, the religious crisis, but almost none of them mention unusual numbers of dead rats. In modern bubonic plague outbreaks, dead rats are impossible to miss. Their absence from medieval accounts is significant. If not primarily rat fleas, then what? Two alternative explanations have gained serious traction among researchers in recent decades. Theory 1. It was primarily pneumonic plague. Pneumonic plague is a form of Yersinia pestis infection that attacks the lungs. It spreads through the air, person to person, through coughing and breathing. It is far more contagious than bubonic plague, and it is not dependent on fleas or rats at all. Pneumonic plague kills nearly 100% of untreated cases, faster than bubonic plague. And it spreads in cold weather just as efficiently as in warm weather. Some researchers now believe the Black Death was primarily a pneumonic plague pandemic, possibly combined with the bubonic and septicemic forms. A perfect storm of all three variants striking simultaneously. This would explain the speed, the winter transmission, the catastrophic death rates, and the relative absence of rat die-offs in contemporary accounts. Theory 2. It was not plague at all. This is the more radical proposition, and it comes from serious researchers at serious institutions. In 2001, historians Susan Scott and Christopher Duncan from the University of Liverpool published a detailed analysis of the Black Death's behavior. They concluded that the disease's characteristics were inconsistent with any known form of plague. The incubation period was too long. The spread was too fast. The mortality was too high. The seasonal patterns were wrong. They proposed that the Black Death was actually caused by a hemorrhagic fever virus, similar in nature to Ebola, an unknown pathogen that has since disappeared or mutated beyond recognition. Their work was controversial. It remains contested, but it has never been definitively disproven. In 2011, a major study extracted DNA from the teeth of Black Death victims buried in London. They confirmed the presence of Yersinia pestis. This seemed to settle the debate. Bubonic plague. Case closed. But the story is more complicated than the headlines suggested. Confirming that Yersinia pestis was present does not necessarily confirm that it was the sole or even primary cause of death. Multiple pathogens can circulate simultaneously during a pandemic. Some researchers have suggested that the medieval population may have been weakened by other factors. A series of catastrophic famines had struck Europe in the decades before the Black Death. The Great Famine of 1315 to 1322 had killed millions and left survivors malnourished and immunologically compromised. A population already weakened by years of starvation would be far more vulnerable to any infectious disease, including forms of plague that would normally have lower mortality rates. Some scientists now believe the Black Death may have been a synergistic catastrophe, multiple factors combining to produce a death toll that no single pathogen could have achieved alone. Plague, famine, secondary infections, immunological collapse, all striking simultaneously. A perfect storm of death that the medieval world had no framework to understand or resist. Whatever its precise cause, the Black Death transformed European civilization in ways that are still felt today. The feudal system that had structured European society for centuries collapsed almost overnight. With so many people dead, labor became scarce. Suddenly, peasants had leverage they had never had before. They could demand better wages and conditions. The rigid social hierarchy that had kept the poor permanently poor began to crack. The church suffered a catastrophic loss of authority. Priests had told their congregations that faith and prayer would protect them. Then the priests died alongside everyone else. The institutional failure of the church during the Black Death planted seeds of doubt that would eventually flower into the Protestant Reformation 2 centuries later. Art changed permanently. The Dance of Death became a dominant artistic theme. Skeletons leading kings and peasants alike in an equalizing dance toward the grave. A visual reminder that death came for everyone, regardless of wealth or status. Even the English language was affected. So many French-speaking nobles died that the balance of linguistic power shifted toward the English-speaking peasantry. Modern English carries the fingerprints of the Black Death in its very vocabulary. One catastrophic event reshaped an entire civilization. The Black Death remains the deadliest pandemic in human history. 50 million dead in 4 years. A third of Europe gone. We have spent 7 centuries assuming we understood what caused it. But the more carefully scientists look at the evidence, the more complicated the picture becomes. Yersinia pestis was there. But was it alone? Was it even the primary killer? Or was it one component of a catastrophic convergence that our current medical framework still struggles to fully explain? The victims of the Black Death lie in mass graves across Europe. Some of those graves have been opened. Their DNA has been analyzed. Their bones have given up some of their secrets. But not all of them. The Black Death whispers to us across 7 centuries, telling us it was more complicated than we thought, that the official story, as always, is not the whole story. Subscribe to Mysterious History for new mysteries every week. The official story is never the whole story. Coming up next on Mysterious History. The night Nikola Tesla died, government agents raided his hotel room and seized decades of research. Most of it was never returned. Some of it has never been seen since. What did they find? And what did they not want the world to know? Nikola Tesla's missing files. Next week on Mysterious History.